Sure. Here's a complete script based on the outline you vy dead. I never thought I'd be in this kind of situation. But sometimes life throws you a curveball, and you've got no choice but to catch it. So, here I am, standing on my property, looking at a fence that I didn't build around land I've owned for decades. Not just any fence, mind you. A steel fence, with barbed wire running across the top, surveillance cameras blinking down on me like they're waiting for me to make a wrong move. And the worst part? It was all put up overnight while I was away helping my daughter in Arizona. When I came back, everything had changed. I own 200 acres of land in a quiet corner of Oak Ridge County land that's been in my family for generations. It's my home, my peace. It's where I built my life after retiring from the Army, where I raised my kids, and now it's where my grandkids come to play. There's a barn that's older than I am, a windmill I built with my own hands, and the smell of fresh hay in the morning. I've worked hard for everything on that land. But that morning, as I stood in front of the new fence and saw the sign reading, "Private Property, HOA Access Only," I realized I didn't even have the right to drive onto my own land. I stood there, frozen, my dogs barking from the other side of the fence, and I thought, who the hell does this? I tried to call the number on the sign, and some smug voice picked up. "This is Marcus from Golden Acres HOA. How can I assist you?" He said like he was doing me a favor. I told him who I was and that they'd made a mistake, fencing in my property. There was a pause, and then he just laughed. He laughed. "Oh, we know whose land it is," he said. "But your ranch vy Olat's Golden Acres vy Sewell standards. It ruins the aesthetic of the neighborhood, so we had to take action." "Visual standards? The hell is that?" I snapped back. "You're trespassing. You've taken my land." But Marcus, in his smooth, corporate voice, said, "We prefer to call it emergency containment." He then mentioned something about the gate key being for HOA members only, and then he hung up. I stood there, staring at the lock on my gate, my mind spinning. They locked me out of my own land. No warning. No legal notice. They just decided to take control. Now, let me tell you something. When I served in the military, I learned one thing above all else. Never let anyone push you around. And that's exactly what I was about to do. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let some HOA bureaucrats take what was mine. I thought about it for a moment. Then it hit me. The access point to my ranch was a narrow strip of land that ran along the side of the fence they built. And it didn't belong to them. It belonged to the Simmons, an elderly couple who lived across the road from me. They'd owned that piece of land for years, but they never bothered to update their title. So, I did something I never thought I would. I bought it from them. The Simmons were happy to sell, and just like that, I legally owned the only access to the HOA's gate. Now I had control. I had the key. I got a locksmith, replaced the HOA's lock with my own, and posted a new sign on the gate that read, "Private Property. Entry by permission, only trespassers will be prosecuted." The next day, Marcus and his team rolled up to my gate like they owned the place. I watched them from the other side with a cup of coffee in hand, my dog Duke standing beside me. Marcus punched the code into the keypad, but nothing happened. He punched it again, still nothing. He was confused. Then he saw the new sign. His face turned redder than a lobster. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. I just smiled and said, "Morning, Marcus. No can do. You're not on the list." I could see the vein in his forehead popping, his fists clenched in anger. He started pacing and talking on the phone, but I wasn't worried. I had everything I needed. The legal documents, my land, and my share of friends who'd had my back for years. I knew what was coming next. Sure enough, Marcus pulled out bolt cutters and started walking toward the gate. But before he could even get close, the sound of sirens cut through the morning like a hot knife through butter. It was my sheriff buddies, Deputies Clark and Ramirez, pulling up behind Marcus's SUV. They got out of their cruisers, and I just stood there, calm as could be, watching them approach. Clark, the tall one with the silver mustache, looked at Marcus and said, "Step away from the gate. Put the cutters down." Marcus froze. He tried to protest, But Clark wasn't HOA-ing any of it. "You're trespassing on private property," he said. "You've crossed a line, and now you're going to answer for it." Marcus just stood there, mouth agape, completely humiliated. The officers were firm. They asked Marcus to leave, and of course, I didn't press charges. I wasn't interested in playing their game anymore. I had a bigger plan. But I wasn't naive enough to think that was the end of it. The HOA wasn't just going to walk away quietly. 3 days later, I got a notice in the mail from a law firm, threatening me with a cease and desist order. They claimed I was in violation of community access rights. It was laughable, but I knew I had to fight back. That's when I called my daughter Emily and asked for help. Now, Emily's got a friend, Sandra, who's a real estate attorney in Houston. And let me tell you, that woman is sharp. She took one look at the paperwork, laughed, and said, "They don't have a leg to stand on." She filed a response, a legal masterpiece that quoted everything from property law to the Homestead Act, making it clear that the HOA was in the wrong. But they weren't done. Not by a long shot. They started sending drones over my land, spying on me. They even tampered with my irrigation system. But I wasn't going to let them win. I doubled down on security. I added more cameras, more lights, and even got a second dog, Rex, a German Shepherd. And just when I thought they couldn't get worse, they did. One night, I heard Duke barking like mad. I ran outside, and sure enough, my shed was on fire. I grabbed the hose and did everything I could, but the fire spread too quickly. By the time the volunteer fire department arrived, the shed was a total loss. But the worst part? It wasn't an accident. One of the firefighters, Bryce, who used to work for me, looked at me and said, "This wasn't an accident, John. Someone poured accelerant on it." That was it. I knew now I wasn't just dealing with a land dispute. They were escalating things. They were trying to break me, but I wasn't going to let them. I spent the next few days planning. I called Sandra and told her everything. We were going to take them to court, but before we could, the HOA came at me with something bigger in an attempt to annex my land. They wanted to absorb my ranch into their subdivision for community cohesion. I wasn't going to let that happen. I fought back. Sandra and I went to the county board meeting with everything we had: drone footage, violation letters, photos of the fire, and my legal paperwork. I wasn't just fighting for my ranch. I was fighting for my family, for my history, for everything that mattered. When the HOA president, Lorraine, tried to smooth talk her way out of it, I had one thing to say: "Take your fence down, or I'll make sure you never set foot on my property again." And just like that, they backed off. But the fight wasn't over. It was just getting started. I know they're watching me, and that's fine, because I've made my stand, and I'm not going anywhere. The next time they try to push me, I'll be ready. And I want to hear from you. What do you think? Should I have taken the money and walked away? Or did I do the right thing by standing my ground? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this video. Let's keep the conversation going. Because sometimes, standing up for what's right is the hardest thing you'll ever do. But it's always worth it.